How do you amplify a once in a 500-year flood into like a once in a 1,000 or 2,000-year event? See, I just, for me, the mathematics, there's only so much precipitation in the water that can be extracted out. I don't care what kind of technology you have. You can move a storm, but to create 3 times as much rainfall out of a storm that only has a limited amount of, like I say, moisture availability in it, that's the baffling part for me. That's why I'm sort of, I can't see the other part.
Do not forget. Do not allow this event to be brushed underneath the rug.
This is Define the Fight with Mariah Prussia.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to this fine Monday morning. We have been blessed with unbelievable weather the last couple of weeks, from 70s, 80s, kind of unheard of in the great state of North Dakota. But today, I'm coming in with a guest who has a plethora of knowledge, experiences, and we've all had different things that we've been challenged with in the last X amount of years when we're looking at coming off of COVID, now moving into a lot of pivotal states of mind when it comes to natural disasters. Today, I have the honor of visiting with David Dubine, who is the producer of the Adapt 2030 video series and Civilization Cycle podcast, where he discusses how to navigate the cycles of change. So, David, I am so blessed to have you on this morning to share with us, what is going on too in North Carolina. I know that you're from where the main storm had hit, so I'm curious to see what you are seeing on the ground. Like I said, there's different things, and there's a lot of different adversity that's going on, and a lot of questions of, are they actually being helped? The level of, I've seen different things and read different things about the flooding and the fact of being in the mountains. What is the likelihood of flooding actually, happening in mountain towns? And then too, the fact of not having flood insurance. All right, now we're actually live. The freeze is gone. Welcome to the show, David. I don't know what you had heard coming in, but I'm excited to have you share your knowledge and your passion today on Define the Fight.
It's so far beyond of a disaster what anybody except the social media people or people on the ground are really telling you. What you're looking at in the national news is not reporting even 1/5 of 1/8 of 1,000th of 1% of truly how devastating it is. Roads are washed away from the roadbed. There's no road to go in and repair anymore. But you have to realize that North Carolina is a very mountainous area, and any place that had a creek, a river, a stream next to a roadbed, the road's no longer there or so severely damaged that I do believe North Carolina and parts of East Tennessee have been wound back the clock to 1860. They're taking mule trains and horse trains up there now and to higher elevations. It's the only way to deliver supplies. It is so devastating what is going on here. You have to realize in major parts of 2 states, they're going to have to rebuild every road. Every bit of electrical wiring is going to need to be put back up. The amount of cell towers that were washed away in the flash floods, all of the piping and conduit for your water delivery or sewers will have to be put in the ground from zero again. It was so ferociously ripped up from the torrents of water that haven't been seen in 1,000 years coming down. Fiber optic cables, everything will have to literally be rebuilt from the ground up, as you understand a modern society. Elon Musk warns if Trump is not elected, this will be the last election. And Trump warns a Kamala win could lead to a 1929 style crash. Costco seen double-digit growth in gold sales as gold hits all-time highs. Goldman Sachs raised their target $2,900 an ounce by early 2025. Silver outperformed gold up in 2024 32%. That's an 11-year high. And JP Morgan forecasts silver to hit $36 an ounce in early 2025. As we see, this is the most contested election in history next month. Why wait? Call the proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. And Patriot Gold Group has the No Fee for Life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or silver. And you may qualify for the No Fee for Life IRA. On qualifying rollovers, give them a call, 888-546-7020 for your free investor guide today. And also Patriot Gold Group, rated Consumer Affairs top gold IRA dealer 7 years in a row. That's 888-546-7020. And now on with the video. In addition to starting over with people's homes, they're going to have to be bulldozed. They were so flooded up to the roofs and beyond if they stayed on their foundations that, the 100 billion that they say to rebuild is far, far less than it will take. You're talking about putting road systems, sewer, water, communications, and electric, and that doesn't even include the transformer back into the better part of Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, parts of Georgia, and parts of Southern Virginia, right there on the border. I mean, how long is it going to take? There's not enough media coverage. It seems to be a media brownout for sure. Now that there's so many larger, alternative voices talking about it, they were absolutely forced to now come clean. So temperatures are dropping really quick. Even where I'm at, it was around 48 degrees last night. And that's down here, and I'm at 1,000-foot elevation, right at the edge of the Cherokee National Forest. And, the higher you go, the colder it gets. Now they're going to be in need of medical supplies and actually thick clothing, food and water. And there's still an enormous amount of people up there that need help. So now it becomes a recovery mission. They don't know how many people were prepared, how many people can survive through this, and how many people could take care of themselves for a minimum 7 days. They're starting to get choppers up there now, finally. The FEMA personnel were being, let's say, manhandled when they were trying to prevent supplies from going up to the point where they called in the National Guard. I think they did that as a protection mechanism for FEMA, not that they really wanted to go up and get 6,500 Guard members up into the hills to start rescuing, because it's going to be a body recovery operation. And once they see the devastation and the amount of people that come down in bags, not walk down, it's going to change our country. This is a pivotal point. I do believe that we've reached a tipping point here in America, because once people realize how late the supplies came in, the stoppage of supplies going up and donations because they didn't come from FEMA preferred provider list. Once we start to get all this information out, people are going to really ask a fair few questions. And I do believe here, at least in the Southeast, everybody is very aware what's going on, because they either have visited there, they have vacation rental homes they own, they have Airbnbs they own, they have family up there, family that knows somebody else that knows you, that's just literally one step away, and everybody's involved in this down here. So the railroad tracks are washed away. That's another thing, like the railroad tracks, there's no more rail anywhere in that area of the country. It's all been eroded from under the rail beds, and the tracks literally hang in the air. We're talking a decade of hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion, to rebuild this whole area of the United States back to the way it was, the property damage. And I have no words for looking at the delay in getting a response up to these people. It's sickening, it's devious, it's dark to leave them up there like that. That's insane.
Well, we're going to go into a quick break, but before we do, David, the fact of the delay, we need to start questioning, why was there a delay? When we start looking at previous natural disasters that were catastrophic, right? When we look at Hurricane Katrina, what was the response there? And why has the media really stopped putting things out there? Is it the fact of disconnecting humanity from that emotion, and then also linking arms together to rise? Because that's what needs to happen when we look at what's going on. And yes, I know it's far deeper than that, but the part that's really disheartening is that they're not looking at the individuals who are severely impacted and also losing their lives, because every minute counts. So we're going to come back here with David, and we're going to learn more on how we can help, but then also too, why was there a delay? Back here shortly on Define the Fight. Prior to going into break, I have a question for you, David. We talk about delays, and we look at our society on the fact of clickbait and how fast, it's that instant gratification, but yet how fast the news moves, so that our attention then shifts to what's next, right? But we need to circle back into currently what's going on with North Carolina. So why do you believe that there was such a delay in regards to providing assistance to North Carolina?
I'm involved with a couple of different ham radio groups, and that's how I'm getting a lot of the information is downrange mountain or down mountain from the ham repeaters that have finally gotten repaired. They actually took mule trains up there, and a couple guys with horses are taking antennas up to the areas that are blown down so they can, reestablish contact. And that way you can get the repeater network up there and, get in a little bit closer locations to some of the damage. The response out of Asheville also, they were preventing people from going up to Black Mountain. And I mean, it's really just a skip and a jump out of there. The whole Ingalls distribution facility was wiped out. They wouldn't open the stores. You think Ingalls, shame on you. You think as a supermarket, and you had food in the stores right there, like 10 minutes outside Asheville, where you're between two disaster zones, and you place 3 police officers in front of the store instead of writing that off and giving the non-perishables to people who needed it. Like this kind of stuff. Their entire facility was wiped away. And then they want to protect a dinky little store there. They could have given that food away. This is the kind of things that are going on. I'm not saying they caused a storm in this whole, Jack in the storm and
Right.
cloud seeding. I'm not on board with that right yet.
Right.
But I will say, riding on top of a natural cycle or a natural event to get a greater outcome. Like, look at that thing that just fell in their lap. There's no buildings left. Where they were, they're gone. They're foundations, if you even have a foundation. That concrete slab was ripped up in so many places too. Like, there's really nothing left there. In so many valleys.
My question is this, and now all of a sudden where we're looking at mountains where it typically doesn't flood and most people don't have flood insurance. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first off, thank you for talking about the insurance. Word is, the reading the contracts of those, that is a loan to you. That is not a gift from our government. If you do not pay that $750 back within 1 year, they have the legal right to seize all of your property. Well above, I might have my property paid off, and if I accept that $750 and if I don't pay it back in 1 year, they're able to confiscate my 25 acres here, even though it's paid in full. Be careful of that. It's not given to you. It is a loan. And these same areas, where's first? Pushing in. With the bulldozer crews pushing in up to those same areas where the quartz mines are. It's so integral for the world supply chain to have that high purity quartz that they are rebuilding access to the quartz mines first. Like, that just shows you where we sit today in terms of human life. There's no cost of your life. You're expendable. And I hope that's the greatest message everybody's getting out of this. At least here, we're understanding that, hey, you're on your own. You're so on your own. If any disaster happens, or if there's truly a breakdown in our society, you are absolutely on your own. And we have a farm out here, and getting with the neighbors and just so many things we've already prepared together. But I step back and I go, you know what? Wow, we need to step it up about 20 notches from this point, because we are truly on our own if something happens. Purity of quartz is another. And if you dispute this, or you don't want to listen to Mariah or myself, I would encourage you to go to the USGS. That's our Geological Survey for the United States government, and just put in USGS. You can take a look at the mineral resource by state, and you should see the amount of dots that are right there in North Carolina, all the way through that exceptional flood zone. And the reason it doesn't flood is because when the water comes out, it generally channels down into these rivers, creeks, hollers, and these kind of things, stream flows, cricks as they call them. It usually just flows down, and it doesn't flood because there's nowhere for the water to really stand. Yeah, they might have a flood, but these people, there was a story about a couple who was trying to look to see where they built. So they went to the 500-year flood zone thinking they would be above the biggest floods that could come down in terms of a flash flood. Not only was their house inundated at the 500-year flood zone, it went up above the chimney to when the photos that were taken in this particular valley, only the chimney stuck out above the floodwaters, but they built up several feet from the 500-year flood. This is the immensity of it. 1.5 trillion gallons came down. Now, apparently, according to Meteorological Association, this was the most water that had ever fallen out of a storm ever recorded across America anywhere since records have begun in the 1880s. That is the biggest, most ferocious flood, and the most water literally came out of the atmosphere. Now, I might add a point to that. Hunga Tonga, the big eruption, that big volcanic eruption in the middle of the ocean in Tonga 2 years ago, that ejected 14 and added 14% more moisture into our atmosphere in that single event. Now, gravity, the way it works, that is starting to come down now. So you have to wonder if that was indeed part of the reason that the water volumes, precipitation volumes were just so heavy. Or was it cloud seeded? See, this is where I'm border on the edge there of, can they steer storms? If you look back at Operation Cirrus in the 1940s and Operation Storm Fury in the 1960s, it does appear that they had ways to bend and amplify hurricanes. Now, I'm not saying that was the sole cause, but walk with me for a second. Perfect conditions. We got 14% more moisture in the atmosphere because of the volcanic eruption. That area was going, if they're able to steer it, yeah, they could steer it right up into that direction. Mathematics would be in their favor to drop a lot more rainfall in areas. But for me, I'd be, well, you could maybe create a once in a 500-year flood. Now, the whole point I don't get and I'm not on board with is, how do you amplify a once in a 500-year flood into like a once in a 1,000 or 2,000-year event? See, I just, for me, the mathematics, there's only so much precipitation in the water that could be extracted out. I don't care what kind of technology you have. You can move a storm, but to create 3 times as much rainfall out of a storm that only has a limited amount of, like I say, moisture availability in it, that's the baffling part for me. That's why I'm sort of, I can't see the other part.
I also, too, when we come back out of a break, I want to talk about that $750 that you briefly spoke about, again, being able to come in and take their land if it's not paid back in a year. So we're going to come back with David Dubine here shortly on Define the Fight. Hey, welcome back to Define the Fight. We are here with David Dubine, and it's heartbreaking listening to the fact of where attention is being shifted to. You know, I'm all about the life, the humanity, and living from a heart-centered space. And when we are not being fed, and again, using the word fed in a different way, but at the same point, it's devastating. It's heartbreaking. And I can't imagine what families right now are feeling with losing loved ones, trying to survive and stay alive. Like you had, what do you see or what have you heard in regards to roughly the number of lives that have actually been lost in this past week or so from the storm?
Well over 2,000, with so many that they marked on the sides of the rivers that they thought were buried because there's a smell that comes out. And when they're doing recovery, there was one that they said they found 11 bodies in just 6 miles, and that doesn't count yet because they're buried up. You know, they're rolling. It's just, they're buried.
And it's
way more than you're hearing about. And then how does that make the government look, where this toll is going to go well up into the multi-thousands? But then, you know, there's a point where you need to split the hair. And again, okay, the storm came in and people were swept away. Their houses, entire houses just drifted off the foundations and went down. Those that were told to evacuate in certain areas, they were in their cars and their cars were just tumbled. And it looks like they've been into, a junkyard or something where it crushes down the car. That's what the cars look like as they've been smashed down, rolled and continuously battered through the trees and the logs. And the way they sent them down into the evacuation zones and lowlands for those escape routes was also no words for that. But the toll's going to continue to climb up. They got 6,500 guard members going in there, and all the Chinooks so far for body recovery. So, you know, in these last 5 days or 6 days, you know, you're seeing Chinooks going up and back, up and back, up and back, and they're just body recovering. They try to make you think that the Chinooks are running huge amounts of supplies up there. No, as far as I heard, and this is confirmed by several people, they're involved in the recovery operations. And they put a blanket out there that you're not allowed to fly drones. And, you know, the only reason I could possibly say that is they don't want you to see what has gone on there. You know, because there's a lot of drone operators that are doing, you know, mapping, and they do a lot of different type of topographical mapping. So they have these really heavy duty drones that are, you know, I was watching one guy, he goes, yeah, we're going to fly it over 6,000 or 2,000 feet over that mountain, and then we're going to drop it down the other side. I'm like, man, that is miles in, like 5-6 miles in the distance before you even reach over that peak. And he's like, yeah, these things can stay up for about 45 minutes and, you know, 30-mile range. So these drone operators that are on the industrial application side are coming in and using their expertise, but also now they're being stopped. Like, what's going on? Why would you stop people from being private helicopters, that are coming in that wanted to fly? They're being grounded, and no TAMs were put up for restricted airspace. It's just baffling to me. You had all these people, citizens, individuals that were going up to help other people. Then they didn't want the negative publicity that the citizens rescued everybody this time. And government can't handle every single problem that there is out there, because that just doesn't fit in the little tiny box. Square peg, round hole on this one. The citizens were rescuing people. They know every back road there. Hell, these people have been hunting their whole lives there. They know all the logging roads. They know how to get in with the ATVs. They know everything. They know the hiking trails. And they were being told they couldn't go up there.
Here's the thing is, David, I want to circle back because you had mentioned in regards to, FEMA, we had a bunch of different fires that broke out in North Dakota over the weekend. And yes, I love our state and the fact that FEMA's response was 1 day. 1 day in regards to aid and assistance to our state. That's what I wanted to bring forth. So when we're looking at why was North Carolina delayed so long, again, we appreciate the fact that our state received, finance or, assistance. But at the same point, it raises an even bigger question mark on what was the breaking point, or why was that line not, initiated, going right in there, knowing how many lives have been lost. That's frustrating to me. And that also raises a really big question of, again, why? And I do want to come back to the one question prior to that. We were like the $750, David. All right. So what was that labeled at for these individuals? How did they actually receive it? Right. So is that something that was actually directly deposited, since there isn't, there aren't any there's no mailboxes, right? They're not able to really receive anything. What was that stipend for? But then you had also mentioned the fact that they have 1 year to pay it back. And if they don't, now what they're doing is they have to sacrifice or release their land, their property to the government. It's like, again, don't bite the hand that feeds you. But at the same point, hold on here. We have to start second guessing, the motives behind things.
But the response, again, the pre-response. All right, I'm living here in East Tennessee, right at the border of Cherokee, right here in North Carolina. Like, we knew the storm was coming days in advance. We saw the track coming up, even the rain models, the forecast models for tremendous rains, and we were battening down the hatches here, and we had so many trees fall down in the forest. It was unbelievable. These, big old hardwoods, giant 80-foot pines, just all laying in a single direction. You could see the direction where the wind was coming from, because how many uprooted, huge, gigantic trees we had fall. Now, I don't know if we're ever going to clean that up. It's in the forest. It's just so big. But, we knew it was coming, and we had battened everything down. Generators were ready here at a single pull to get that. We were expecting power out. We had the Starlink up and running. We're expecting internet outages. We always have food, because I always have food. Beyond that, if I'm just a guy out here watching the National Weather Service or the National Hurricane from OSHA, from NOAA, knowing that there would be a giant storm like this with record rainfall coming days, plural, in advance, you think FEMA would have got on the ball and sent some, at least some pre-staging supplies or pre-staging administration up there first, and they didn't. Now, as for the $750, I've seen story and on Twitter, if you or X, I'm old school. If you put in there FEMA loans denied, just in your browser bar, there's video after video and story. Nobody's getting the funds. That's the whole thing. Is like, the one girl was saying that everybody that was there that was from this area that got out, zero got the funds. Now, what they're going to make you do, please be careful. Before they would even come in to assess your property, you have to sign a contract that they can come in and assess your property. Right. So on that bottom there, it's written really, really, really small. And it says, if you get $750, that's a loan. And if it doesn't pay back. But then when they give you the paperwork to get the $750, it's not written on there. It's on the agreement to allow them to come and take a look at your property to see if you qualify for the $750. You really need to be careful of that, because when you sign that first paper, and then if you do get the funds, and you'll see, it's not written anywhere on here. Oh, that was the agreement to allow an inspector to come and take a look at the damage to see if you qualified for that. So be careful, everybody. I'm serious. Be very, very careful. I would actually, at this point, I would just say, no, I don't want the help. 8 organizations are out here. There's a huge amount of ministries that are going up. Churches are helping beyond belief. There, you got everybody around here running with their gear, giving away equipment, fuels, chainsaws, everything. Everybody's taking care of themselves and helping the communities take care. So if they actually knocked on my door, I'd tell them you're trespassing. Get off the land. I do believe we're at a turning of America here.
I couldn't agree with you more in the fact that I'm really hoping that everybody is leaning into their faith during this current time. But too, looking at the fact of $750, why $750? Because the reality is that's not going to do a whole heck of a lot when you're looking at you lost every single possible thing that you owned. We're going to go into a quick break here, David, but man, the content and the information that you're sharing right now, I appreciate you and your willingness to share this information and hopefully educate some individuals that may be listening down in that area too. So we'll be back here shortly with Define the Fight. Hey, welcome back to Define the Fight. When we're looking at life in general, it's important to understand that humanity and staying connected and recognizing that how can we help? How can we be in acts of service when sometimes we really don't know what is going behind the scenes? David has shared a plethora of information that we haven't seen. And I can't tell you how tragic it is to hear more and more about the individuals that have lost their life. I'm huge into faith, and I believe that we need to lean into that and connect our lights, right? And to be light workers of this world, because the reality is our mission in life is larger than ourselves. So how can we help other individuals? So David, looking at the individuals right now is, I think the key thing to understand is do not forget. Do not allow this event to be brushed underneath the rug. We want to make sure that we keep everybody in our thoughts and our prayers. But what are ways that we as individuals outside of North Carolina can help assist or, suggestions? Because the reality is I know everybody wants to help support, but we just don't know how, especially when we don't know the narrative.
If you have the motivation and you want to learn survival skills and work with others, you can bring your physical body here and hook up with the ministry. There's several I can get you in touch with, people that I trust, that I know personally. And it seems that the churches are really distributing a lot of goods, and FEMA's not interfering with the churches because under that 501c3 or 508, they already have an agreement to be the distribution point for those in need. And again, it's all about faith and people believing in helping humanity. Whereas I really see a dark presence on this country where it's nothing human. It is an invasive hominid species that has taken over the reins and controls of power. Because what I see here is something feasting off of the sorrow. There's an entity feasting off of this death that's in the mountains. And by bringing that light force in, and I know it sounds a little woo-woo, but those people going in up there, their hearts are just like, whoa, so open. You can see, to feel the energy of love coming out of them to go up and help. Like cutting through the darkness up there. But that $750, that doesn't do anything. They were price gouging around Asheville at $400 a night. So you got to think, $400. You only got $750. You can't even stay 2 nights in the hotels now because they understand all these government agencies are suddenly running down there. They had a few news crews, but the whole thing was up in Chimney Rock and some of the worst hit areas of Asheville, they wouldn't even let CNN in there, which is interesting. But for them not allowing even CNN to see the damage, I mean, something's terribly wrong up here. And it seems like it's being forced to create more misery and more damage and just a longer recovery time on purpose. And again, I'll say that. I'm not sure. You can use your imagination and run 1,000 directions with it, but I don't have that answer. I just know that it seems it was quite delayed, but it is going to be up to us. And again, the thing I could say is when these situations arise, the only people there that are going to be to help you are those that are there in your communities or those that believe in life, that are going to come to help and rescue and provide supplies. So this was such an eye-opening event for me. There will be no government help. If it is, it's going to be minimal at best. And it's so sad that our country has become this, where they divide on political lines and you get the resources or you don't. But we could wind this into the future as well. Moving out with food and the reduction of food production because of natural cycles, you will be given resources if you believe and repeat a certain narrative that will build the reality that these controllers would want. If you do not, you absolutely be on your own. And I would warn you now, get off systems that are on these centralized supply chains, because if you do not believe and do what is required, jumping through hoops to get your resources, first you'll be cut off, but then it'll become a way of life. I absolutely see our world moving into two different directions like this, as well as our country, almost at an instant basis here. But on a longer term, moving in 5-10 years from now, things that are planned on the global level are no different than what's happening here. I'm just seeing it in real time in a very small space of, if you don't believe in this way and you won't repeat a certain narrative and kowtow to a certain party, you will have your resources cut off. And that, comes into the global level as well. So, you can go macro, micro on this, does not matter. I'm looking at something very, I have seen the future, and it is a scary one unless you're prepared. So that would be my final message, I guess, is you're going to have to start working with your communities.
Yep, 100%.
Know who you can trust. And Mariah, thank you for having me on.
Well, the fact of self-reliance is understanding that we all need to be growing our own food, right? Just different tiers of level of preparedness. And I think when we put so much reliance on somebody saving us, I think the reality is we have to do the work and take action and control what we can control. But at the same point, too, is having and leaning in towards your faith as well. Link with your community, your friends, see what they have. If we end up shifting towards a barter system, make sure that you are fully aware of what that looks like.